Hey, nice to see you all again, or so to speak. We are in the middle of an intensive, or at the very end of an intensive, actually working on the portrait right now. And one of the benefits that you can never underrate, return to me again, and that is the clarity it brings in terms of your expressions about things. You know, you can have said something to people many times in many ways, but in the middle of teaching, it's not unusual for a teacher to discover a better way. And I'm always looking for best ways of expressing things. But here's something today that I'm going to bring to you that I've never said in precisely this way or with this much clarity, even though I beat around the bush saying that it's what we do. This is a point that has some narrowness to it for a reason. Narrowness, focus might be a better word. Really bringing into focus an element of what we do in the start. I want to thank, before we do start, I want to thank Arvin. It was really appreciated, Arvin. And Arvin says, thank you for the videos. They're helpful and comforting to watch. That's something I'd like to know more about. uh, I'm surprised to hear that term. I'm not really surprised. I can understand it, but I wonder if my understanding of what you're thinking is the same as what I would think. But hope this donation helps. Really appreciate it. Everything helps, Arvin. And your comments are particularly encouraging, comforting to watch. Very good, very interesting. I'm going to just start with this comment here for everybody. I do have to let me get my presentation scale going on here. If you just ignore me for a second. All right. All right, let's see. All right, and let me get the laser going. So here's a question. Is there an indispensable goal or goals for the start or lay-in of someone trying to work along the Boston Schools lines? And this, I'm using S, that's Sean. I hope you don't mind, Sean. It isn't your question, but you're the person that may caused it to happen. Uh, so we're gonna really narrow in on a very particular thing today. Let me, while we're staring at this comment here, understand something. It is truly impossible for somebody to say anything to define somebody else's way of working, the Boston School being what it is, and that being in itself somewhat unknowable. It's not the details of which you might say are somewhat unknowable. But once you've begun to work the way I work, you find many things we have in common, which is sometimes why I talk even about Meldrum or Sargent. There's this common thread that goes through every bit of this kind of appearances-based painting. So, so in the appearances-based painting, is there a goal or goals for the start of a lay-in? So that's the question of the Impressionist. I'm going to just simply go to an image, and but the point I'm going to make in simple words, and I'll show you this comment at the very end. I'll leave it up there for you, giving you some clarity about what I'm going to talk about, what I've talked about. But these are demonstrations that I've done. I'll walk you through three of them. These are three demonstrations. The This one, the most recent, pile of stuff, very complex. Not an attempt to be a simple still life, but just a accumulation of pile of stuff that I'm trying to show how to hit the notes and establish, the visual order. So the sort of sequence of activity. So that's what starts are about. But what is my goal? The big question is, what's the goal in the start? And as I said, I'll lay out a bunch of points. But right now, I want to just talk about one goal, and that is, it came out of a different question that was happening in the intensive workshop. By the way, the intensive workshop has itself one goal, and that is to try to bring across to people this in a sort of summary fashion, an understanding of this way of working and a sense of the approach. I try to tell people when they're doing it with me that I'm not saying you must do it the way I do it, but the content is such that there's something around what I'm doing that's going to be like what you're going to wind up needing to do. So even though I do it this way and that way in terms of the lay-in specifically, that you're not bound to that, and you need to explore for yourself, find your own best ways. But I'm trying to get people just to have the penny drop about what it is that we're doing, and that is producing the visual impression producing a picture that isn't a picture of things and objects outlined and modeled as much as it's a picture of things in a totality of an environment. So you'd say the general impression, the impression to the eye. So it has its unique best ways, as I've found them at least so far, and that's what I try to get. I try to get that penny to drop with people. And these guys, this has been a really wonderful group this year. Everybody is all in, and I think the one advantage has been that they're all in because they've seen the videos, they've heard me speak, and a lot of the information is already sort of in their heads. And that in the past, and the first time I did this, it wasn't clearly obvious. That was more than 2 years ago or 3 years ago now. What would that have been, 2 summers ago? Yeah, fully 2 summers ago. And that was about, I think, the time we were beginning these videos. So what I want to do is just, so having shown you these, let me just talk with some certainty about my way of working. And then, I'm sorry, let's, I'm not even sure how to approach this precisely. Let's just talk about this for a second. One of the things I'm really trying to get everybody to do by the end of the day came up because the question was about having a concept of the thing fixed in your mind and eye. And I'm talking now about the light and the color, for example. And someone saying, but the next day, the light might be wrong. And you know the answer to that question is, what would Monet do, right? The day the light's wrong. He doesn't paint that same picture that same day. He doesn't get dragged around by his heels by the day. He waits for the right day, right? On the other hand, as you've seen probably in my forced video, I said that my video in which I was forced to work through bad days, and that was the violinist. I apply this information. That is, I acquire as best I can on the first day the color scheme, and I try to maintain it throughout the rest of the painting. Now, to the extent you don't have it well established in the lay-in, which the lay-in could be anything from a 2 hour plus, 2 to 5 hours, say, thing, and I think we were bound by the sitter to be in 3 hour sittings, maybe. So my days would have been 3 hour days, and et cetera, et cetera. But what I was trying to do in the start was establish the light, the color of the light, really is truly what I mean. Because the day, for example, the sky changes, the color of the light changes, the shadows in relation to the light side change, intensities shift. For example, on a blue day, it's remarkable how much more intense the golden quality of the shadows can be. On that darker day, there's less intensity because of a lack of light, just pure and simple. And then for other reasons, and that is because the light's warmer, the shadows which are tending to be warm are weakened in terms of because the other one has become less cool. So the contrast isn't there. So I'm trying to lay in a painting. And so you'd argue that one of the first goals I have is to lay in a painting, and then so I can stick to the colors. But I would say just overall that what I'm trying to do is get my start to contain all the magic of the visual impression as I see it in front of me. And what would that include? Actually, let me just put this thing up there. I'm thinking to avoid it, but I think I'll put it up there now. What I'm giving you right now, by the way, just in reading this, is a verbal clarification of one of the key goals of our Impressionist lay-in. It centers around establishing where you're trying to go, establishing your first vision onto the canvas so as to maintain it in the end, till the end. And that's again, so you don't get dragged around kicking and screaming and having your painting shift this way and that way with the wind of the light, shall we say. This means having it first in your mind and eye, but working with relentless focus to establish from the start not just the big relationships, the major color masses, visual order of light effects, general tonality, color scheme, the general color of the picture, the range of significant form content, and the composition, but specifically, as possible, the essential magic, the life, the beauty of these things, okay? So at the end of the first day, I actually want to have the composition settled. I want to have the light effect settled. I want to have the big impression overall settled so that when areas show form, they have form. But so the big question has always been, how much of that can you actually do in the start? And my question to myself is, how much of it can I do to convince myself this is going to be a worthy thing to finish? So if I don't see the magic at the end of the start in all these different ways, in these different key areas, then I don't. Then I have doubts, and I have to proceed further until I see it. When I see it, I say, okay, now that's the end of the start. And that's an interesting thing because getting to the end of a start is important. Getting to the end and having quality a quality statement that you can actually submit the rest of your activities to the control of is kind of a big deal. Now, don't make it such that I'm saying that in a way that you never shift anything in the picture. You don't see something. But that idea, what I want on my canvas is notations to myself. That so that when I'm looking at my canvas, I'll remember what my big vision was. I don't want to lose that. You will lose the vision of that you had that first day or so. You'll lose that vision over time if you don't make these kinds of notes to yourself. So you see what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to establish so much so that I can say, I've got this thing, I've got it. And yet you can't do it with lots of little stuff. You can only do it with the interrelationships of the majors. And they do contain it all. It's one of the things you begin to learn. They really do contain the essential magic. Not the finessed version of it, which is what finish is about. But the central magic of the big impression can be acquired through the major events that we talked about just here in this typed up thing. So I'm going to leave that for you on the screen at the end, or you can look at it anywhere. I don't have to leave it anywhere, do I? Because you guys are all savvy. But take a shot of it if you want to for yourself at whatever point. So my goal here. Uh-oh. So my goal here is to have the color scheme, which gives the light effect, the value scheme, which is part of the light effect, the edge of orders and effects, that thing there, which is part of the light effect, the distribution of all these things that produces and its location on the page that produces the composition, the color relations to each other, producing the color scheme. Did I say that already? And no more. And one of the things to notice in the start here is you're not doing fine articulation, for example, at edges. You're doing effective and essential. So these are edges, but you can see them that they could easily be made finer if such is required. Sometimes I do find that I'll do an edge like this one here, and at the end I still haven't touched it. It's very adequate for the job. But believe me, when I put down these things, I just make them effective. And then as I go along, I don't go self-consciously picking on them to work on them. I just wait till they actually need to be worked on while I watch the whole general impression evolve. So, but not so much, not very unusual to find that some parts of it haven't even been touched. So you understand that I'm after the major value relationships, so the overall picture here is a very dark picture, but the darkest dark is here and over to here. And you can see what the lightest light is, undoubtedly this kind of stuff here. And you can see various levels of midtones in different areas that that are fairly limited. Now, certainly in the lay-in, you're not looking for 1,000. You're trying to keep your eyes blurred so you can see the major number, and you want to make sure you have those. Remember, everything that we're doing is a search, but you have to actually search and win in the start. You actually have to search and say about that. Your start should be such, like the guy who saw the Paxton start, the director of the museum school, who said, I have to have that so my students can see what a good start looks like. Well, we keep looking at that picture because it's such a beautiful picture. It's a start, but it's really beautiful already, right? That's the key to a good start in the Impressionist mindset. So this is a demonstration from a previous workshop, maybe last year's workshop, I can't remember. Or maybe, no, it was, I think, for my class based on some of the setups in that group. This one is unfortunately, and that happens, is I shouldn't say anything about the color, but sometimes the cameras don't do justice to these, but this is fairly adequate. But you can see my efforts are going into getting the color relations of the reds to each other in this system, as well as the value system and all the rest of that. And I'm working hard at establishing the effective places, the stronger reading places, and places like I'm sort of pointing at right now. All that sort of thing. That's the visual order group. The color group is different. The spotting of the major lights, or whatever we're talking about. You see that what we're trying to do is though see if we can get the essential magic, and by the way, and a balanced composition to boot, right? So and it should be such that you can the next day, if you come in and the day is different, you'll see a difference in the color. Now, you might not do that until you have a more sensitive eye, or you might see too much difference. The one thing that you want to maintain whenever you're doing this, the only way it's going to really work for you, though, is to be relational in your colors. So I could talk about process, but I've talked about that in several other videos. There's at least 2 videos that discuss this. If you go to if you, oh boy, I'd like to tell you they were done in October, the end of October 1 year. And I want to tell you it was last year, but I might put the year before. But go look around, though, on the list of videos. You should find some that address this question, either the lay-in or you might see one of them has a picture, I think, of the decamp with the 2 girls, the start with the 2 girls on it. That might be one you could look at. The other one has one of my students' little still lifes on the cover, on the whatever you call that, the front plate. But if you can follow that, so the visual order is established, the shapes that matter are established. A lot of times, if there's a blob like this, it has to be the right oval, etc. Things like this have to be the right shape. But it doesn't mean we're doing a basket. And you can see the importance in a start of not doing the basket. But we are very pointedly doing the light effect in places like this and over here on this spot, while not so much bothering with these. There's a bunch where it reads. You can see that I put time into some of them, and where I'm adequately leaving the other ones. But the goal is to get to the big end of the big general impression with some of the essential magic, and so you can say, I like this picture. So you can say the painting will say, I like this picture. People looking at it will say, I like this picture. But I will show you this start is one I'm working on in theory right now with the group I'm with the intensive for this year. And you can see what's happening here is the basic layout of the color scheme. You can see what we do is we spot values around. And then there's the search, the color values, by the way. And then there's the search for placement, which would give us something like this, establishing something close to the top. Or this might even be establishing the left, the location of it. And I think that did establish the location of it this way through the picture. But it's trying to be truly the right light effect. So the colors want to be right to each other and scientifically right to each other. What I mean to say is really well considered in relation to each other, not as sight-size colors, but as that imaginative set. The relational truth, that set. So that if there's blues in here, they have the right intensity in relation to each other. If they're greens, the right values, the right contrast, the right chroma in relation to each other. And every place else in every other category where you can see reds like this and this and this and this, you'll see that they are well organized to each other and well seen in that relationship. And in that group of things, you're going to see the color of the day. And I don't want it to be right. I want it to be the day such that I can say this is going to be a good picture. Do you see what I mean? But it's bigger than that, because at the end of the day, what you need is to have the essential unity of the light effect. You have to have the essentials of the composition, and so on. So understand that if you have in your mind before you ever start, and this is kind of the crucial thing to our kind of painting, make sure you pre-vision this. You actually are holding it in your mind, and all that's happening on the canvas is you're watching to see it show up, and everything you do should be an effort to get at the key things and to let them show up on your canvas. I should have taken a photograph of this. I'm sorry about that. Maybe another day I will take a photograph of the scene because it's still sitting there, so you could actually make a judgment for yourself about what I was doing. I set myself up to get picked on, don't I? Well, in any case, so you understand what I'm saying. So I don't think you're going to find there's anything more mysterious about it, but let's go back and leave you with this one more time, if I'll just be able to read it to you, and maybe I'll come up with the second point I should make to you or something else I should add, but I probably won't. So we're looking for a verbal clarification. This guy's I'm offering a verbal clarification of one of the key goals of our Impressionist lay-in, which is establishing where you're trying to go, establishing your first vision onto the canvas so as to maintain it till the end. And if you understand, that means all the elements that I then make in this list. Now, it doesn't mean that we're just doing realism. You can see that we're not. We're actually getting, it's all effect based. It's all relationship based. So if we can establish the beauty of the relationships that produce the color scheme, the beauty of the relationships is where the beauty lies, right? So the beauty of these relationships, the beauty of the magic of the effect relationships and their order on the canvas, to the point where you have enough to be able to see that this is a good start, that it's true to nature as you see it there in this broad, as I've said before, the synoptic way of thinking about it. You might look at that video too, though I use the word synoptic. The essential magic, right? The summed up magic. And yet you'll see again that it's full of very specific things. So I'm trying to leave you with that. You're going to have to look through this several times probably, and have that quote in front of you, maybe printed out or something while you're looking. But this doesn't have to be an extended video. I wanted to just say it because it's one thing that I've never precisely said as clearly as I'm doing right now, that the goal at the end of your painting is to have not deviated from the magic of this, the unity of the magic of the impression that you set forth to do in the start. Now, keep remembering that you can semi-fail at that at some point if you're actually uncertain, unfortunately uncertain. You would wisely restart or back this painting up to the present day and try to get all these unities for the new vision, the new day. Remember, the Impressionist is after the day, right? That's a key to what he's doing, is the color of the day. So you may say this is not outdoors and therefore it's not the day, but it is the day, right? And as soon as a pink cloud comes over, as you see in my way, if you can see, you could see if you were there, over my model in doing the violinist, you'd see the temptation would be to go chase the color because it's easy to copy color. But what's hard is to get your big vision onto the canvas and maintain it. That's what your job really is, though. But if you don't go for getting it on there, really, really, really bringing it in that start, and have other agendas, it won't be there at the end. You'll still be guessing about whether this picture looks nice. But the key thing is, of course, the unity of the day, the unity of the visual impression. So aim at it from the very beginning. Get it onto your canvas, or don't consider it a good start. Okay? All right. Thank you all for staying tuned with me, for the patience in my just doing this once a week. I don't hope to keep doing it once a week, but it is kind of a relief not to do it twice a week. So I might fall to that temptation. I hope that doesn't mess up your comfort zones. On the other hand, I'm not thinking to do that. Just I'm watching myself, doing the wise thing. All right. Of course, always thank you for your contributions, your donations, your sharing is really helpful. Share, please, and subscribing and all the rest. Comments. Keep the comments coming in as much as you want to. Focus them around work, on the stuff we're doing, the things we're doing. Somebody asked me to talk about Sisley. I can do things like that, and I don't mind doing it, but I'm not an authority. I don't try to be an authority on all these guys. I don't mind talking about them, though. I've considered Sisley, for example, the second best of those people painting around the Monet model in France. And I don't think that I think several people like Metcalf in our country is possibly doing that better than Sisley ever did. But I'm not trying to be this guy that separates us into the Americans versus the French or something. Though somebody implied that I might be assuming we're all smarter over here. I never have been that guy, by the way. But I'm not apologetic, that at the point when the modernists decided to destroy our establishment, the training in our establishments, we were beginning to peak, and even the Europeans were noticing it, and we're beginning to be serious competition for what was coming out of the world at that time, for the best in that world. So I don't apologize for using American work, but I don't pretend that it's the only and the best and the one and all that sort of stuff, and that we're the great, what's the word, BL and all of painting. Anyway, now I'm wondering. All right, see you next time. Have a great week, and enjoy the show.